Hello everyone, Parashat Bechukotai. In the final parasha of the book of Leviticus, in the midst of one of the most searing courses ever to have been uttered to a nation by way of warning, the sages found a fleck of pure gold. Moses is describing a nation in flight from its enemies. So we see it written, just the sound of a wide wind-blown leaf will put them to running, and they will run scared as if running from a sword. They'll fall even when no one is chasing them. They will stumble over each other as they would before a sword, even though no one is chasing them. You will have no power to stand before your enemies. There is, on the face of it, nothing positive in this nightmare. Yeah? But the sages say they will stumble over each other. Read this as stumble because of another. This teaches us that all Israeli are responsible for one another. How true is this today? Always, but in these days specifically, how true it is. And there is no other nation out there so much responsible for one another as Israel. This passage that we've read, it's very strange, yeah? And surely the whole Torah testified. When Moshe speaks about the reward for keeping the covenant, he does so collectively. There will be rain in due season. You will have good harvest, and so on. Yeah, the principles that Jews have collective responsibility, that their fate and destiny are interlinked. This could have been found in the Torah's blessing. Why search for it among its curses? The answer is that there is nothing unique to Judaism in the idea that we are all implicated in one another's fate. That is true of the citizen of any nation. If the economy is booming, most people benefit. If there is law and order, if people are polite to one another and come to one another's aid, there is a general sense of well-being. Conversely, if there is a recession, many people suffer. If a neighborhood is scared by crime, people are scared to walk the streets. We are social animals, and our horizons of possibility are shaped by the society and culture within which we live. All of this implied to the Israelis so long as they were a nation, their own land. But what about when they suffered defeat and exile and were eventually scattered across the earth? They no longer had any of the conventional lineaments of a nation. They were not living in the same place. They did not share the same language or everyday life. You understand? It's like they can be responsible for one another, and as long as they live together. Now they are all over the place. So why they're still responsible for one another? Yes, they were not living in the same place. They did not share the same language. Yeah. While Rashi and his family were living in Northern Europe and speaking French, Maimonides were living in Egypt, speaking and writing Arabic. Yeah. Now, nor did Jews share fate. While those in Northern Europe were suffering persecution and massacres during the Crusades, the Jews of Spain were enjoying their golden age. While the Jews of Spain were being expelled and compelled to wander around the world as refugees, the Jews of Poland were enjoying a rare sunlight moment of tolerance. In what sense, therefore, were they responsible for one another? What constituted them as a nation? How could they, yeah, seeing God sung in a strange lake? There are only two texts in the Torah that speaks to this situation, namely the two sections of curses, one in our parasha and the other one in Deuteronomy in the parasha of Kitavo. Only these speak about a time when Israel is exiled and dispersed, scattered, as Moshe later put it, to the most distant lands under heaven. There are three major differences between the two curses, however. The passage in Leviticus is in plural. That in Deuteronomy is in a singular. The curses in Leviticus are the words of God. In Deuteronomy, they are the words of Moshe. And the curses in Deuteronomy do not end in hope, they conclude in a vision of unrelieved bleakness. You will try to sell yourself as slaves, both male and female, but no one will want to buy you. Those in Leviticus end with a momentous hope, but despite all that, when they are in enemy territory, I will reject them or despise them to the point of totally destroying them, breaking my covenant with them by doing so, because I am the Lord their God. But for their sake, I will remember the covenant with the first generation, the one I brought out of Egypt's land, in the sight of all the nation, in order to be their God. I am the Lord. Even in their worst hours, according to Leviticus, the Jewish people will never be destroyed. Not will God reject them. The covenant will still be in force and in terms still operative. This means that Jews will always be linked to one another by the same ties of mutual responsibility that they have in the land. For it was the covenant that formed them as a nation and bound them to one another, even as it's bound them to God. Therefore, even when falling over one another in flight from their enemies, they will still be bound by mutual responsibility. They will still be a nation with a shared fate of destiny. That's one of the things that we talked in the last parasha when we said that when someone comes to convert to Judaism, he also takes the fate of the nation, not only the connection with God. Yeah, you are now connected with Am Israel like a soul. Yeah. Now, it's a very interesting idea, and in covenant society, it is the people as a whole who are responsible under God for the fate of the nation. Yeah. Um, in Judaism, we are responsible only for what we could have prevented but did not. This is how the Talmud puts it. Whoever can forbid their household to commit a sin but does not is seized for the sin of their household. If they can forbid their fellow citizen but do not, they are seized for the sins of their fellow citizen. If they forbid the whole world but do not, they are seized for the sins of the whole world. This remains a powerful idea and an unusual one. What made it unique to Judaism is that it applied to a people scattered throughout the world, united only by the terms of the covenant our ancestors made with God at Mount Sinai. But it continues, as we spoke many, many times also today. It tells us that we are all equal citizens in the Republic of Faith and that responsibility cannot be delegated away to governments or presidents, but belong to each of us. We are our brothers and sisters keepers. This is, um, you know, um, to be a leader. How can you be a leader? How can everybody be a leader? Yes, it's very self-contradictory, this idea of everybody needs to be leaders. Yeah, if everybody is a leader, then no one is. Like, so you have to follow someone. Who is there to follow? Yes. Now, leadership is the acceptance of responsibility. Therefore, if we are all responsible for one another, we are all called to be leaders, each within our sphere and influence. Each of us has their own influence and their things to lead. Yes, if it's within our family, the community, the organization, or a larger group. Yes. Now, when Am Israel is in trouble, we learn that Am Israel is a nation of chesed. It's a nation of mercy. They help each other. They are there for each other. When a tragedy happens to Am Israel, everybody is suffering. It's like it happened to me personally, to my house, to my brother and sister, and that you are not going to see anywhere in the world. This community and this kind of connection with one another that we have, it doesn't matter where you are in the world. You always know that we are all united by this covenant that Hashem made with us, with this nation. And this covenant, it goes on and on over generations, and you can see it, especially today. Yes, in what happens and what is happening now in the world, how even though, yes, even though we do have those who are, yeah, the problem is us inside, that we have to manage somehow to connect with each other and love each other and accept each other as we are. And only then, yes, we can say, Kol Israel Arevim Ze Leze. Yeah, all Israel are responsible for one another. Now, what is your impact? in your perspective of the Jewish people. Shabbat Shalom.